Welcome back to another episode of Political Potatoes. I'm joined today by Representative Ben Fuhriman. Ben, nice to have you with us.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
So, Ben, you're running for re-election. I've been watching this race closely, and there's a lot of back and forth going on. Tell me a little bit about, your background, why you're running again, and what's going on.
Yeah, background-wise, I'm born and raised in East Idaho. I live in Shelley, married for 19 years. I have 4 kids. My oldest is a junior in high school. My youngest is in the 4th grade. We have 1 girl and 3 boys. I am a certified financial planner with a master's degree in family financial planning. I'm also an accredited financial counselor, and I do a lot of pro bono work with people who are struggling in their finances. So when I see all the things that are happening at the government level, both at the federal and at the state level and the local levels, I just have a hard time letting everything just happen. I'm a problem solver. So when I see problems, I naturally want to jump in and try to help. That's one of the reasons that I got involved in the first place. I did not like that the legislature was so focused on culture warrior issues and purity tests. And, it didn't seem like we were really fixing anything. We were just, I don't know the description that I want, but we were wasting time, wasting money on things that were important, but not important to individuals in their communities to the same extent. And so it's one of the reasons I jumped in, wanted to get involved. And now I'm running for re-election because there's still a lot to do. And I would like to continue solving real problems for our communities.
So I'm glad you brought up the whole thing about the issues that people are running on versus what's actually going on, right? What is an issue that seems to be performative versus real solutions and problems? And it seems like there's this drive to create more problems than solutions by working on legislation that, it's just, like you said, the culture war stuff, and not focus on the things that really matter. And then, let's just say no to every budget because that's what Idaho Freedom Foundation tells me to do, right? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that you're kind of the anti-establishment candidate here, right? And you're saying I'm not going to be bound to these interests of these groups that are focused on these issues. Tell me more about that. What drives you to work on what you're working on? What's your process when you decide to champion a bill or support a piece of legislation?
Right. My decision-making process is the same whether I'm deciding what to do for a client and how to invest their money, or if I'm trying to decide where to take the family on a family vacation, or if we are trying to solve a problem for someone in our community that can be, helped at the state level. It's gather as much data as possible. It's determine what is the real problem we're trying to solve. Because sometimes you're just complaining. Sometimes you just want to go on a vacation because you want to go on a vacation. You don't really care where you go. You just want to go. And sometimes in government, we're that way too. We don't really know that there's a solution. We don't really know that there's a problem. We're just unhappy. Making sure that there is a solution that the government should get involved with, and that maybe there isn't a way to solve it without legislation. I had a lady call me once who was having trouble with her passport. And so I was able to connect her with our congressional delegation, and we were able to help her get something solved and resolved without going to the federal government and saying we need to change the law because she had a hard time getting her passport taken care of. Sometimes problems can be solved without new bills and new laws. So my decision-making process is gather data, talk to both sides. There's always 2 sides to every story, and find out what the solution is to the problem. And what I saw happening in the legislature was special interest groups who would score legislators based on their bias, the interest group's bias, and their agenda, what they were trying to accomplish. And then the legislators would be afraid to move forward with courage to do the right thing because of the money that was going to be spent against them, because of the mudslinging that was going to happen if they didn't toe that line. And I can give lots of examples of that. Groups like the Family Policy Center, the Idaho Freedom Foundation, Make Liberty Win, like all these different groups, these conservative groups that have popped up right and left, that it's just, you got 10 people that formed a conservative group and they have an agenda. And that's not the real Idaho that I grew up with. The Idaho that I grew up with was communities. It was the PTA. It was the Boy Scouts. It was the church groups. It was the real communities, not these political activist groups who want to influence and push agendas in order to then go out and raise money by saying, look what we did, look what we accomplished, now give us money so we can do it again or we can do more. And so my decision-making process is to actually tackle the real problem and not allow myself to get influenced by the agenda.
So one thing I've observed a lot of, especially the last few years, is this idea of groups needing to tell people what they should be angry about. Like, it's like they sit in a room or, they're having on a Zoom call together or whatever around the state, like, okay, what do we want to do this year? Who do we want to take out? And what things can we generate to be angry? It's like, okay, you know what? We need people to be angry about the grocery tracks. That's the thing this year. I mean, what happened with that? Nothing, right? We need them to be angry about this, or now it's these flock cameras, or whatever the issue at that moment is. That's the thing we need to drum up this whole thing. And then we're going to rally the legislators who I would call them bought and paid for at this point, right? These far right groups. And say, okay, you have to do it this way. And I don't know if you read this article published a while back called Donut Diplomacy. It's like they say, hey, here's what we want to do, but we know these things are going to fail anyway. Okay. They're ridiculous and outlandish, but we need everyone to be mad about these things. And then when they fail, predictably, which we knew they would, because not only did we push bills, they pushed bills that had what we call like a poison pill in them or something that was just so outlandish that no one could really vote for it, right? Without being painted in a corner, like I can't support that kind of thing. Also, they can say, use it against the next election cycle, but then say, you know what? This bill would have passed if you had more people like us in office. Like literally we're winning by losing, by failing. So it's a celebration of our failure that we engineered so that we can make you angry about stuff so we can continue to lie to you about stuff. So, have you seen this? Like, this is just my observation, but it seems like this is a pattern that keeps repeating itself.
Yeah, I could give you numerous examples of what you're describing. I think perhaps the most obvious one this last session were immigration bills. And so we were told over and over and over during the session, we have to pass an immigration bill. And we said, why? We just have to. The people want it. I'm not getting my door banged down, my phone ringing off the hook from people saying pass an immigration bill. People are not happy with immigration. People are not happy with illegals and what they're doing across the country. But I don't have anybody in my neighborhood who came to my house and said, hey, see Jose down the street? I want you to make sure he goes home because I don't like that he's here. None of that happened that I saw. But we had to pass an immigration bill. So they brought forward a couple immigration bills that were bad bills. They would have been detrimental to us as a state. And when I say they, I say like what you said, the individuals who have these agendas and who are strategizing and meeting in the mornings to be able to figure out how they're going to get certain people so that they can have more power. They brought bills forward that completely ignored federal guidelines. Like one of the bills that we had on E-Verify was absolutely unconstitutional. And so we sit in one corner and say, we love the Constitution, we have to follow the Constitution, but then over here, we need to pass this bill that was unconstitutional. And why? We had a letter from the White House that said, we really want you to get an immigration bill passed. They didn't even care what it said or what it was. They just wanted an immigration bill. So myself and a couple other legislators, we drafted and we co-sponsored an immigration bill that was good. It was legal. It was constitutional. It would have put some sideboards on some larger businesses and the government. It had to do with E-Verify. It was a half decent bill. It passed the Senate. It never made it in the House because it wasn't the right immigration bill. And then they ended up radiator capping a completely unrelated bill to throw in an immigration bill that they liked. When that bill went back over to the Senate, the senator whose bill they radiator capped has to present that bill in the Senate and say, this bill has been amended in the House, and they either recommend that the Senate accept the amendments or don't accept the amendments. So we had people throwing temper tantrums in the House of Representatives to get this immigration bill passed that they completely radiator capped, hijacked from another legislator. I was the co-sponsor on it, and I took my name off it because of what they were doing. And then when it comes over to the Senate, the senator said, so the House messed with this bill. They radiator capped it. I don't appreciate it. And I think that we should reject it. And the Senate said, okay, we reject it. And it was over. All of the tantrums and everything for nothing. And so, yes, it happens all the time where you have bills that are being pushed for the sake of the headline, not because we're actually trying to accomplish anything or solve a real problem.
So I sense a little bit of frustration in your voice and tone here. Tell me, just if you're looking back at just say this last session, how did it go? Like, what was your personal experience there?
So my first session was a learning curve. And I can share some experiences of the Idaho Freedom Foundation's influence and some of the people that follow them so closely, and how a bill that I was bringing forward that solved a real problem was killed because of a rating score, where another bill that did something far worse than what they claimed my bill didn't even get rated. This session coming back was an election year. And so it was a completely different feeling. And of course, we had the budget issues that we were focused on. And so the conversations were all around budgets, everything. was budgets. And even if you had a solution to a real problem, if it was going to cost $10,000 to fix it, it was near impossible to do. So frustrating things about this session, priorities were not aligned as a legislature. The things the governor was trying to accomplish versus the things the legislature was trying to accomplish, we were not on the same page. We should have used budget stabilization funds to be able to relieve some of the pressure that we felt in the budget, in my opinion. We had programs that were cut that were absolutely imperative for our society to keep going. So there were a lot of frustrations in the fact that if a committee is stacked, for example, JFAC, if you have somebody who is made the chairman or the co-chair of JFAC who has less experience than a number of other people on that committee, only because he's willing to cut everything and throw everybody else under the bus, procedure and whatever be damned, then he gets that power. And then when you have other people in that committee added who are willing to do whatever he tells them to do. So you have individuals with tons of experience taken off of the committee in order to put people who have zero experience, freshmen, people who came in with me, 2 of them, on the committee with zero experience because they will do exactly what the co-chair tells them to do. And so you stack the committees. That's extremely frustrating when you're a legislator and your vote is as important as the other 104 votes in the legislative body. But yet, because of the stacking of committees and because of the agendas, there's nothing you can do. It's not a fair playing field, and the people don't get properly represented when one ideology or one agenda is being put on display and being prioritized over any others.
So it sounds like the priority of what's happening down at the Capitol, and I got to spend a little time down there this year, and I saw this firsthand. It wasn't about representing the people. It was about representing whatever needs to be said or done to get our people in so we can gain more power so that, we can effectively deliver for our donor clients. I don't call them clients because these are people donating wherever they are. A lot of it's dark money, want something done. Perfect example, less dark money, but we know school choice groups, right? They are very obvious about how much money they're spending and who they're trying to take out because it's a profitable thing for them. Okay. Well, at least we understand that one. That one makes sense. But the other one's less so sometimes, a little more opaque. And when you see that, it's like, well, okay, at the end of the day, where is the voter in this whole thing, right? Where are the people of Idaho involved in this when they're completely cut out? And they're cut out, in my opinion, because they were lied to with these mailers, these text messages, the door knockers. Oh, Ben, you're a rhino. You're not a conservative. You want porn in schools or some other ridiculous false claim they're making, right? And then,
Right.
Your opponent, well, I didn't say that. It wasn't me. I'm this nice person. I'm a great conservative. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. That's bullshit. Julianne Young, the people that work with you, the people who back you, like Lauren Walker and other people who are posting the most horrific, disgusting crap. People are actually making death threats to judges online. People are posting death threats to Party Central Committee people, members and such online. These are your people. And not once have you disavowed this, okay? It's disgusting. I don't see this happening with Representative Fuhriman, right? These aren't his people. Tell me about it. Like, who's backing you? Who's endorsing you?
Yeah, the industry of the state, right? Businesses, individuals, doctors, people who are affected by the legislation that is being passed, who want to see change, who want to see common sense brought back to the state legislature, who like the open dialogue that we've had. One reason that I ran was I heard from so many people that my opponent never talked to anybody unless they were in her camp, unless they agreed with everything that she wanted and agreed with. For example, she would never take a meeting with the Dairy Association. And so you've got one of the largest industries in our state. And I don't know about you, but I love ice cream and I love milk. And you're a legislator representing commerce, representing the people, and you won't even meet with them to hear their concerns. So, I've outraised my opponent this election cycle, and a lot of it is from individuals, business owners, and yes, political action committees who have an interest in making sure that Idaho stays a free and good place to do business. That's true. I will say, like, associations really do matter. And it's funny that people will gripe and complain about who somebody else associates with. But if you point out who they associate with, then it's like, oh, no, that's okay. It's fine. It's fine that I'm part of Christian national groups. It's fine that I take money from people who run, the Idaho Freedom Foundation. It's fine that the lobbyist for the Idaho Freedom Foundation has donated to my campaign multiple times. That's fine. I don't know who the Idaho Freedom Foundation is. And you just go, so either you're not paying attention or you're purposefully ignorant. And I don't know which is worse. It matters who we associate with, right? And that's why elections have choices. It's all about choices. It's about letting the people decide what direction they want. And if they want somebody who's going to focus on real problems, focus on our pocketbooks, focus on affordability, focus on business, focus on good jobs, focus on building our state and growing our state and helping our state do all these things in a prudent and tax efficient manner, then that's me. If you want somebody who's going to, focus on culture war, focus on sex, focus on gender, focus on national issues, and every single piece of legislation you bring is purposefully crafted to withstand Supreme Court scrutiny, I say, why even bring legislation that you know is going to be challenged in the first place? Write it correctly the first time. That's responsible legislation. But if that's the person you want, then people can vote for that person. And that's what's beautiful about our system, is that we have choices. And that's what elections are all about. It's choices.
But some people are just really good at deceptions and manipulations and lying, right? And it's been effective, right? We've seen so many people who, in my opinion, are rotten to the core get elected in the state that have no business being in office, but they keep getting reelected because, they're with these groups. But I want to bring up one interesting point. So you have an opponent who the people who are backing her are the exact same people who are 100% going all in on helping a guy named Mark Fitzpatrick, who's running against Governor Brad Little for governor. Okay. Now there's concrete black and white, evidence. Okay. Literally this guy's own tweets. Okay. Like, I'm not making this up. It's like his own words, well documented. So, and he'll say, well, I didn't say that. Well, here you go. Here's literally a screenshot of what you said. But okay. This is a guy who, one, promotes the flat earth theory. Like there's video of him talking about, it's like, well, this, and this, from this idea that the earth is flat. He makes the most outrageous anti-Semitic comments. He literally has praised Hitler, put up polls praising Hitler. Okay. He has on multiple occasions posted very just outrageously offensive content aimed at members of the LDS faith. Like he hates members of the LDS faith. It's very clear. He'll go, I say, oh, no, I love them. That's just not true because you said this.
During campaign season, he loves them.
Right. And he's saying this, right? He's running for governor. He's saying this. This is a guy who owns a bar. And the people backing him are the same people backing Julianne Young. And not once has she said anything about this. Oh, no, I don't like that guy. And here's the thing. You can say whatever, but here's where it comes down to. If you took one penny, or a mailer was put out in your supporting you or attacking Representative Fuhriman on your behalf that backs this guy, well, you'll play this guilt by association game. You're the same. You are that. So until Julianne Young says, I 100% disavow Mark Fitzpatrick's hate towards members of the LDS Church, towards Jews, all the other hateful vitriol he does, okay, and then sends back the donations and publicly writes a, hey, this is not okay message, then she's in their camp. That is who you're voting for with her.
Yeah.
She gets to own that. I'm sorry. She gets to own that. And I'm sorry. I know you can't say that, but I will, because this year, I'm fed up. I'm so done playing nice with these guys. It's game over with that. Anyway, sorry. I don't want to derail you, but I appreciate the work you've done and how you're able to articulate and say, what your position. So moving forward, this next session, if and when you're reelected, if and I know there's a lot going against you on this race, and it's tough, and I understand how I can see it, like just how hard this is on you and your family. But moving forward, what would you like to see accomplished next session?
Yeah, if I can, before I answer that question, I want to address just a couple things that you mentioned. First, I understand the frustration. It's really hard. There's a lot of things that happen in the political environment, things that are said, things that are we call them impugning motives, saying somebody wants something because, we look at one vote that they took or such. I think that my opponent is a wonderful human being with a wonderful family. She's also a member of the same faith that I am and an active member in that faith. And I don't ever want to impugn her motives, right? And claim that she wants something or will do something. I understand the association thing is sometimes hard. Sometimes people will tie themselves to you. You don't want them to. You can actively, say things against it, but sometimes it doesn't happen. I get it. I'm not going to blame her for all of it, but it is a pattern of, 4 years ago, it was Ammon Bundy. Now it's
Mhm.
Mark Fitzpatrick, right? So we claim that we're Republicans, we claim that we're conservatives, but then we're constantly not supporting the leader of our Republican Party in our state, which is the governor. The leader of the Republican Party at the national level is the president, who's in the highest person in power. The leader of our state is the governor. And I have the governor's endorsement. I have a great working relationship with him and his staff. I 100% support launch, which is something he has championed. I was visiting with a business owner recently who his biggest problem right now is not taxes. It's not even inflation. His biggest problem is a skilled workforce. He needs 400 more employees and he can't find them. And so that's a real problem that we need to be solving, and launch helps solve that problem. My opponent voted against the creation of launch. She voted against the funding of launch, and she would do it again. And so I'm not going to say that she hates launch, but she has chosen to vote against it. You can go to my website, furmanforidaho.com/verify, and you can see the record. You can look at the bill numbers, you can look at the year, you can see exactly the votes that were taken. And so, she's a good person. She just chooses to approach things differently than I do. As far as what I hope to see accomplished and what I would like to see take place down the road, I'm exhausted, Gregory, with the constant fighting within our own party. People constantly say, if we don't get conservatives elected, we're going to turn into Colorado. Do you know how Colorado went blue? It went blue because the extremism and the radicalism of libertarians who claim to be conservatives coming into the Republican Party pushed all of your traditional and Ronald Reagan style conservatives out of the party, who then found solitude with more centrist Democrats. And they essentially pushed the state blue. And we're seeing the same thing here in Idaho. If we're not careful, the extremism and the radicalism is going to turn us into a blue state. And so I would love to see us working together. I would love to see us compromising. That's not a bad word. I like that Ronald Reagan said, if you agree with me 80% of the time, you're my friend, not my enemy.
Mm.
I would like to see us be able to debate and be able to have disagreements. I was at an open house this week, and it was a friendly crowd. These were people who came to hear what I had to say, who were undecided, who wanted to hear my positions, my thoughts, my feelings, and ask some questions as well. And two staunch supporters of my opponent came. My opponent had the same meeting, the same individual who hosted the same meeting for her. None of my supporters showed up and caused any problems at her meeting. But these two staunch supporters came and asked manipulative, pointed questions to try to get me. And I'm just tired of that. Listen and make your decisions and go vote. But this constant, I'm going to force you to believe what I believe because I think I'm right, and therefore everybody else should do what I do. I'm a very religious person, and I believe in agency. I believe in the Bible. I believe in the creation. And if you read the Bible and it talks about what happened before this world, and if you believe that, then you can see so many parallels between the approach that is being taken of I'm right, you're wrong, do what I say. If you're not with us, you're against us. That kind of attitude is not what I believe we're supposed to be living on this planet at this time. So I would like to see, of all the problems we could solve and all of that, you could talk about taxes, we could talk about education, we could talk about energy, we could talk about commerce and the economy. All those things are great, and I love talking about those things. You ask me what I would love to see accomplished or what I'd love to see changed or what I'd love to do moving forward. I'd like to get rid of the divisiveness and the contention and get back to where we can cooperate and push Idaho forward. That's what I'd like to see.
And that is a very noble effort. And I appreciate your desire to do so. And I think a lot of us agree with that. We want to see change. To the point, what you said before, you've been through a lot. You're frustrated. You're tired. It's rough. And, as you know, I've been through similar things myself. And I've never even run for office. I'm a nobody, right? I just like to write stuff online. And sure enough, that draws a lot of attention apparently. But you're right? It's we need to be focusing on people who are focused on good faith actions, not bad faith actions. People who are focused on bringing the party together and looking at ideas and solutions that, grow the Republican Party brand, not shrink it so you have less people that you have to spend money on lying to. We've got to focus on better solutions like that. And it's going to require a shift in one, voter education, I believe, and two, unfortunately, got a clean house for some of these people. It's a cancer, right? What do you do with cancer?
Yeah.
You just don't let it sit there. You
You
have
take it
to
out.
you have to treat it. You have to identify it, call it out, move it, eradicate it. Right? That's what it is, and that's what we're seeing. These are not conservatives. They're not Republicans like they say they are. Like your point, a lot of them have a libertarian ideology. And
Most
you're
of
right
them-
about Colorado. We're seeing the same thing happen here. Well,
Yeah. Most of them aren't even from Idaho, Gregory. That's what's
No.
crazy to me. Like the chairman of the Republican Party isn't even, born and raised from Idaho. We have people who came here from California, from Washington, who were here for less than a year and then filed to run for public office. We have some of them in the legislature, been here less than a year and they started running for the legislature. I could not imagine the arrogance it would take for me to move to Colorado, Utah, California, Nevada, anywhere, be there less than a year, and then think that I could run for their state legislature. It's incredible to me. But that's what we have, because there's people who just want power. They just want to be in charge. And if I can say something else that really is amazing to me, I've been beat up so much about not being a Republican, right? Or not being conservative enough because I didn't sign the whatever integrity thing is, that I don't follow the party platform to the T and swear to it and hold it on top of a Bible with my hand to the square or whatever silly thing they want. And I thought to myself the other day, if every single person who is an elected official who represents a constituency, if they did exactly what their political party told them to do, whether it's Republican or Democrat, why do you need them? You essentially have a dictator of a political party controlling everything, and we could just send a representative over there to take a vote based on what I'm told to vote on and then come home, and we could get the session done in 2 weeks because there'd be zero debate, there'd be zero different ideas, there'd be zero representation whatsoever because it would all be controlled and run from the top and in a political party. What would be the point of actually having representatives? So the fact that they want us towing the party line and swearing to a platform and then voting exactly to that platform every time, to me, is a slap in the face of what the Constitution stands for. We are supposed to represent our constituency, and not everybody's district is the same. And we should have debate, and we should have discussions, and we should vote our conscience, the Constitution, and our constituents. And that is going to cause many of us to vote differently than one another, because we live in different areas, we represent different people. So I just really think that this idea that we all have to be of one party, of one mind when it comes to politics goes against everything that made this country what it is.
I appreciate that. Really cuts and hits those really important issues that a lot of us have been thinking about. Like, why are we seeing these issues? Why is this going on? But as we get down to the Blackfoot, Shelley area, the counties you represent, goes all the way out to
Arco and
yeah,
Moore
it's a
and,
pretty large
Yep.
area
It is. It's a big district
of the eastern part of the state. And there's a lot of diverse issues dealt with. And one of those issues is, for instance, water, right? Tell me about that particular thing. And is that something that the residents there are concerned about? And what is the issue?
Yeah, everybody uses water. I mean, we need it for our agriculture lands. We need it for our animals, our livestock, our ranchers. We need it for our homes, right? We need it to beautify our lawns and our parks. We need it for everything. Everything relies on water. And if you remember when we, in school, we all learned about the life cycle of water, right? It falls from the sky, gets used, it evaporates, goes back up, and it just cycles around, right? But sometimes we can't control Mother Nature. We can't tell her exactly what we need her to do, and we sometimes don't get the snowpack and get the water that we need when we need it. So it's a problem, but it's a problem that needs to be addressed long term as well as in the short term. So when we have drought years, and if you go back the last 26 years, so to the year 2000, we've had 14 years that have been considered high drought. So what we're going through right now this year is not new. It's not different than what we've been through before. And we have a mitigation plan for our water users, both the groundwater users who pump from the ground and the surface water users who use the river and canals. We have an agreement between them, and it's working. So this year is going to be tight. It's going to be hard, but we'll get through it. It'll be okay. People will have to make adjustments and people will have to sacrifice. And we need to do our part. We need to turn the faucet off when we're brushing our teeth. And we need to be smart about how often we run the dishwasher and how many loads of laundry we do and when. Like, there's things that we can do to help conserve water. But this is a long-term issue for many of us. And so I've been working very closely with Senator Cook and Senator Burtonshaw and Representative Furness and Raybould and Mickelson and Veely and Wheeler and most legislators here on the eastern side of the state. Senator Van Orden is very involved in these things to make sure that we have water policy that is going to move our state forward in the long term, right? We need more storage. We need more reservoirs. I'll give you an example. We could raise the American Falls Reservoir feet. That's it. It's 100,000 acre feet of new storage water. Now, that doesn't mean that we can turn around and just put a hose in it and fill it up. We have to have the water. But we've had many years where we had excess water, where we sent millions of gallons of water, or acre feet of water down the river that we couldn't use because we had nowhere to put it. So that's a big issue. That's something I've been working really hard on, is moving that forward so that we have 1,000 acre feet of new water by the year 2100, so that your grandkids and my grandkids can continue to have water in this area. That's just one of many things. I also ran a bill this last session on cloud seeding to make sure that cloud seeding doesn't get under attack. Cloud seeding provides around 600,000 acre feet of snowpack every single year. Without it, we would be toast. But there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of lack of transparency. So the legislation that I ran in the House helped bring that transparency and bring more guidelines and side rails pertaining to cloud seeding, which was good. So there's a lot of work that we're doing. There's a lot of work we're going to continue to do. But yeah, water's on everybody's mind for good reason. We need it.
Well, and I appreciate you focusing on these important issues because, water makes sense. It makes sense to lead with that, to make that a priority instead of, like a book or a flag the mayor's flying. Like, who cares? It doesn't, I get it, right? We don't like the mayor of Boise flying this flag. Okay, whatever. But how does that impact a farmer who's facing, their water being shut off and not being able to grow their crops that year?
Yeah. Every time
let's
the government
prioritize people. Like, what is more important? here?
Exactly.
And if you can't speak to these issues the way you can, like, you tell me down to the acre foot water numbers, I don't know that, right? I don't write policy. That's not my lane, but listening to you, it's like, I just learned a lot from what you just said. But if I were to ask the same questions to, someone like Kent Marmon or Lucas Kaler or whoever, they look at me like, hold on, let me ask Maria Nate to tell me the answer. That's what would happen, right? Because they don't think for themselves. I'm sorry. And if that comes across offensive, deal with it, okay? Because that's just true. Anyway, the things I hear about some of these people, they're just not that effective. But I appreciate that you are actually doing the work, that you're listening to your constituents, that you're paying attention to the issues. And I know our time's a little short today, so let me ask you, anything else you want to add? Tell the voters before we go.
Can I share a story?
Go for it.
Okay, I want the voters to understand the influence that the Idaho Freedom Foundation has in the legislature. And it's not just them, it's multiple groups. I could name them. But in my first session, there was a real problem that I was trying to address with schools. Our schools across the state most of them could not build a new high school today if they had to. If the people in their school districts came forward and said, we are willing to be taxed to the hilt. You can tax us all you want. We just want a new high school. They wouldn't legally be able to do it, because we have a credit limit for school districts. It's 5% of the property value asset inside that district. And so if you need to build a $100 million high school, but your credit limit is only $75 million, it doesn't matter how much people are willing to be taxed on themselves through property taxes. You can't do it. So a bill that I brought my first session was to raise that credit limit so the schools could actually build the schools that they wanted to, based on the need and based on the community. They still would have had to vote for it, still would have had to get the 2/3 vote, still would have had to put it on the ballot. Still, nothing would have changed except they would have been able to actually keep up with the cost of inflation and the cost of buildings. My bill got rated a -2 by the Idaho Freedom Foundation. I went to their lobbyists. I said, what do I have to do to get you to be neutral in this? Because I know it's not going to pass with a -2. And he said, well, if you can show that it's not going to raise the potential for property taxes across the state. So I went back, looked at everything I'd done, looked at all the school districts, and discovered that, West Ada School District had a $3 billion spending limit because of how big they are and the value of the homes in the Treasure Valley. They're never going to spend $3 billion on high schools or middle schools or anything like that. So we said, well, we can lower their values, right? Their spending limit, if you will, and then raise some of the rural areas to help them out. And we can keep the state the same, right? And so I did that, went back to the Idaho Freedom Foundation and said, okay, I did it. It'll be neutral. In fact, we lowered it by, I think, $50 million of potential bonding across the state. We made it so that there could potentially be less property taxes available across the state. And they said, yeah, we still don't like it, and kept it a -2. So I ran it anyway. The bill died on the floor. I was devastated because it was a real problem trying to be solved. And it died because of politics, because of the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Later that same session, another legislator ran the TECM bonds. The TECM bonds are what we're using to pay for all of the road construction that you see on the freeways and at the highways and the new intersections, all that stuff. What happened in Pocatello, the Flying Y, all of that's being paid for by TECM bonds. We're taking sales tax and we're bonding for it. We can take $100 million of sales tax and turn it into $1 billion of money today through bonding. So this TECM bond was an additional $250 million or $150 or $250 million of additional funding. I think it was $250 million of additional bonding. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure a bond is a debt. So we turned around and added $250 million of additional debt to the state of Idaho. The exact thing the Freedom Foundation was trying to help make it so I couldn't do, right? Potential debt. Guess what their bill was rated, Gregory? Guess.
+2.
It wasn't even rated. They just ignored it.
Yes.
So when that bill came to the floor and everybody voted on it, it passed almost unanimously. So it happens too often in the legislature that representatives look at the scores, look at the ratings. They think, how is this going to affect me in my next election? How is this going to look on a postcard or a mailer? And they vote on bills based on those factors instead of based on what does the bill do? What problem is it trying to solve? And how does it benefit my constituents? Is it constitutional? And can I live with it with my conscience? And that just demonstrates, I think, the power and influence that some of these groups have. So anytime a legislator is touting their scorecard or touting their freedom score or whatever it is, I feel like everybody's spider senses should be going up. Everybody's spidey senses should be flaring up saying, okay, is this person really representing me or do they only care about their scorecard?
And sadly, people have bought into this idea that the Idaho Freedom Foundation's Freedom Index is actually legitimate. It's not. I've proved it. We've proved it so many times over. It's gamed. It's only a tool to enforce what they want and not what the people want. And sadly, too many voters have been misled, gaslighted, manipulated into thinking that this thing is legitimate in any way. It's not. And in my opinion, and I've said this so many times, what your score is, especially when you're in the 90% range, it's not your freedom score. It's literally the opposite. It's your loyalty score. And it's the percentage that you think for yourself. So if you have a 97% score, it means you have a 3% chance you think for yourself. That's not very high. Well, thank you so much, Ben, for being on the show. Thank you for sharing this story. And that's a very powerful story because I've heard that same example so many times over where, they don't score a bill based on who's bringing the bill. And they'll make up stuff that's completely ridiculous. It's like, wait, what? That makes no sense. Because at the end of the day, they know no one actually reads the analysis. They could say, well, the sky is brown or, the up is down, down is up. No one's going to read it. Just they look at the number because
they just look at the numbers. And you find legislators who have those numbers written out on all the bills we're going to hear. They're prepared. They know how they're going to vote before they've even heard the debate on the floor based on the rating of the Idaho Freedom Foundation.
Exactly.
It happens all the
and and it's sad. This group has been enabled to have way too much influence, and it just comes down to voters not paying attention, and that's sad, right?
Yep.
Just pay attention. Listen. Do your homework. What did they say? Do your own research. Right? Was that right? Okay. Right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time and this conversation and just being able to be transparent and talk about your positions, why you do things. So thank you so much.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
What's up? Another episode of Political Potatoes. Please be sure to subscribe and follow along.